I guess in your solar journey, like obviously there was SunPower, and now we're kind of post SunPower.
Yeah.
Were there some principles and things you learned maybe about yourself or about life and business while being at SunPower? Because obviously it was probably a pretty good experience overall, but are there any kind of key moments or things that kind of stuck with you being involved with SunPower and then growing to be the first actual master dealer?
For me, it was just the evolution of growing as a sales consultant and becoming a marketing company and kind of being what I was telling you earlier, an owner who's wearing multiple hats. But
Sure.
What I've realized is just like any industry or any career out there, the more you find your personal why, the more resilient you become as a rep. You just kind of roll with the changes on lending, the changes on
Sure.
product, the changes on dealerships. Those are things that are going to change always.
What's up, guys and gals? Welcome back to the Be Bright podcast, where we focus and we signify bright people, bright products, bright companies. And today is no different. With my man Greg here. Greg, do you want to just introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, so my name is Greg Field. I've been in solar since 2008, kind of one of the pioneers in Arizona. Started with a company that was doing telemarketing, working with solar hot water, AeroSeal, which you guys actually offer. So
What company was that, by the way?
Sun America.
Sun America. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, one of the pioneers. But got my start in the recession, which is like summer when the shit hit the fan in terms of the economy. So learned how to kind of close. It was a one-call close. Had to be there that night, close, and the next day we installed the Favco solar hot water system. So it was kind of a rush process. So it was interesting because that's where I cut my teeth as a sales rep. To be able to close in the home was not comfortable for me. Struggled for the first month. Amazingly, this same company went through reps like within a week or two, they'd kick them out if they didn't sell.
Really?
They gave me a long leash because the sales manager looked at me and said, I think you'll be one of my best. And I was his worst to begin.
Sure.
And then ultimately I just got into the flow. And finally I realized one night, I was like, this is the recession. My girlfriend, we both were laid off. We had no money coming in. So I realized like I have to sell. I'm either going to sell and put food on the table or I'm not.
It's a big why.
It's a big why. And so that night I just beat this woman up. I don't mean physically. I mean like just at her table for like 2 hours, just like determined to close.
Sure.
I ended up getting her to sign the contract, did the welcome call, and then the next morning she canceled. But what I learned that night was it was me having a backbone and understanding like what was my why,
Sure.
why I needed to actually get this across the line for my family. And once it became that important to me, I became the top closer there and was selling an average of 12 to 14 deals during a recession a month,
Sure.
which was really good money back then.
But
so
they didn't have like financing and stuff like that.
we did have financing. This is before financing dried up. We had GE, which is not a good lender at the time. I think we were charging like it's probably comparable to today's rate.
Okay.
No re-amortization in the loan. So we would tell people, of course I found this out after the fact, the vendor that I was selling for, Sun America, they were having us lie to people about it. Saying you could re-am after 18 months or, there was none of that was possible. But in the end, I ended up leaving the company, but I found my DNA as a sales rep, like the ability to close, kind of understand why it's important for me to have my own kind of ethics and do it in a clean way, but also do it because it's important to me. And I kind of learned how to become a sales rep. And then from that point on, I worked with a number of installing dealers here in Phoenix, most of those involving SunPower dealers. And then I got my own dealership when SunPower launched their non-installing dealer program in 2019.
Cool.
And I became the first non-installing dealer in the country to become a master dealer for them. Basically kind of created a category for myself because I was moving enough units myself.
Sure.
And then COVID hit, and then we were in the virtual sit world. So I went from going mainly in person to learning how to do online. But once I got that skill set, then I started scaling my own team.
Sure.
Worked in that dealership up until last year when SunPower went out of business. And then now I'm looking for a new partner, and I met you guys, was fantastically impressed with yourself, Nate, Matt, just the acumen.
In that order, right?
Yeah.
Just checking.
Yeah, make sure you're number one. But what I liked about you guys that I thought at the meeting was really refreshing is I've met many owners in solar that were very focused on it's kind of their way or the highway, and it's one guy wearing 3 hats.
Sure.
What I liked about you guys is it wasn't that. You each had your own lane. You kind of specialized, but you all had great communication in that meeting. Like you could see there was a lot of trust and integrity.
Yeah.
What I look for as myself, when I try to represent solar and the sales side, you guys represented beautifully as an installer.
Awesome.
So it was a great fit right away, and I was like, okay, now I want to work with these guys and scale a team here. My specialty is working with experienced energy consultants, helping them get better at the product side. I'm big on product. We used to work with a venue called, or the medium called Showpad, which is expensive. We had slides with them, but now I just went to Google Slides because it's inexpensive. No, there's no cost.
Yeah.
But I'm big on selling with a expertise in product.
Sure.
Because most reps go to the home today and they kind of go along with what the homeowner says, which is, you've got an all black 400 plus generic panel. Panels are panels. There's no differentiator. And most reps kind of go along with that and say, yeah, my panels are as good as everyone else. Here's my price and here's my savings.
Right.
And they try to get the deal on that, which to me is a fairly weak premise in regards to gaining a trust from a client. I'm more of like, hey, panels are not just panels. How the cell and architecture are built for extreme heat is incredibly important. That's why I'm a huge fan of Maxeon and have been for a long time. But having the right cell architecture, it's like going to Discount Tire. You don't go to Discount Tire in Arizona and say, hey, give me your cheapest tires, because you'll be in that tire store a year later with a blown out tire on the 51 saying, that didn't work out.
Right.
Well, panels on a concrete tile roof that are over 150 degrees are no different. How is the panel built for extreme heat, extreme temperature? If you don't understand what I call temperature rating, or labs call temperature coefficient, you're not going to know how to shop for product. So my job is to teach the reps how to educate clients on panels aren't just panels. It's like anything you buy, cell phone, whatever. You have to know, how is it built? What is the functionality for me? And in Arizona, the question is, again, how does it perform in heat? So I'm about making sure the team understands having product expertise is where I get deals.
Yeah, no, and I think kind of on some of those lines, meeting with you is very refreshing, because most of our, you showed up with a distributor, a panel distributor that you're passionate about, that we'd had some conversations with, but not anything too serious. So you're able to kind of like educate us and bring that to our light, and we're like, oh wow, there is some value here. And your biggest thing was, is like, what value are you guys bringing to the marketplace? How can you be kind of different? Maxeon is one of those ways. And to take a few steps back before we get into the nitty gritty, because product better than any solar salesperson I've ever talked to. I want to go back to, I think the thing you said at the very beginning was, I was a little taken back by it in a good way. It's like, when you showed up into sales, your first day, you weren't the best. It wasn't like you just dropped in like, hey, I'm the number one salesperson. If you don't mind maybe just talking a little bit about that journey of like, how did you go from like, hey, new to this, not sure if I can do this, we don't have money, it's a recession, it's a hard product to sell, I'm like grinding my teeth, to like becoming the top sales rep?
I think for me, it was a personal evolution. It was learning more about myself. So I think I told you prior to us turning on the cameras, my girlfriend is a therapist. So she deals with a lot of human psychology. She deals with heavy stuff, like, people that have been sexually abused, like very heavy stuff. Tough. But so the reason I bring her into the equation is she's helped me really understand more about myself. And the weeks that I was there, for four plus weeks, I didn't sell a deal. She would ask me gently every time I come home at the night. She'd be like, "Did you sell anything?" Because we needed money. Like it was legit. Like we needed to pay her mortgage. Like there were real issues.
Sure.
So, and I think in that space, she was kind of allowing me to kind of figure out, like, again, figure out my why, but also like figure out, like, my job as a solar energy consultant is to tell you, like, this is a great product, this is how we can help you. But if I'm confident in that approach and learn how to become confident and really become, confident, not superficially confident like most sales reps, or where it's like, it feels like you're using a sales technique, to genuinely say, I have your best interest, Mr. Homeowner, and I want to help you through this, and I have knowledge that's going to be helpful in that process. If you come up from a place of authenticity and you tap into that kind of confidence, that's where deals happen. Because it's human nature. If I met you today, Tyler, and I was at your house and selling you, if you genuinely in the first few minutes, and I think this happens within 5 minutes of a sit, you as a homeowner either say, this is someone I can trust, I think this is someone has my greater good in mind, this is someone that has product expertise that I need. If those boxes get checked in the first few minutes, the rest of the pitch kind of goes that direction anyway. And ultimately, you feel good about meeting me, like, okay, I feel like I can trust this person. Yeah. Trust is the thing you're looking for. And I think in that month, it was me finding that ability to be more authentic, be myself in the home, and then figure out how can I build trust. And my girlfriend was helpful in that process. She allowed me to kind of be a sounding board every night to like how my frustrations. I was really good at what I thought was the funniest part is I thought I was really good at the pitch. And I was just whiffing right and left. We had a PowerPoint built for us, and I would go through it very smooth, like a radio DJ, just through the whole deck. And then at the very end, I didn't have the authenticity or the strength or confidence or conviction to say, so here's what's going to happen.
Sure.
And that's kind of what I've gotten to the point where it's now I kind of direct the sit.
Yeah.
Not in an egoic way where I'm like, Tyler, this is what you're going to do tonight, because that would be inauthentic. But it's just finding where it's like, Tyler, I'm going to help you in a way that I think is going to be super helpful to your process. And in the end, if you choose to move forward, you'll choose to move forward. I can tell you in 17 years of selling solar, I've never asked a client, are you ready to move forward?
Right.
Because when the relationship is a big part and I'm focused on taking care of you, the client, giving you the best information I have, your decision is organic.
Right.
It's not one I have to use a sales technique to get you to. There's no close with me. People have watched me function at a high level, sell 5-6 megawatts a year myself, and say, how are you doing 7-10 contracts a week? Now this is in a better economy, obviously, but ultimately it was just my process it's the same process every time.
Sure.
I listen to you, I do really good discovery, I figure out what are you looking for? Can you take advantage of the tax credit, which is critical to lease or loan? And then figure out how can I facilitate, and then how can I fill the information gap that you're sorely lacking, especially after meeting 3 or 4 ECs that are like,
for sure,
panels are panels, I don't know a thing about panels, and yeah, we all have all black panels and they're 400 plus, and that generic talk track gets you nowhere with a client, because clients know, is this somebody that I actually can get real information from? Is this a product expert?
Yeah.
And it may not be how you sell. I'm talking to the energy consultants out there. But some of you may be like, well, I don't need to know product. I'm going to sell them on this technique, or I'm going to save them money, or whatever your hot button words are. It's not technique, though. Technique doesn't get me deals. It's human relationship that gets me deals.
Yeah, no, and I think that's super important, especially now. Solar's shifted, solar's changed. When we had Maxie on in her earlier, TJ, talked about like, hey, how do you differentiate yourselves? And we're building this thing to be around for a long time, and that's kind of a new thing to solar, because like I think a lot of solar companies made the mistake of going quantity over quality, whether it's product, people who are selling for their, everybody kind of falls into that because like you want to grow, but to like what extent? And solar becoming an actual market, then it shifted, and then people were kind of hung out to dry because they had either spent too much money and weren't making enough, or they were stretched too far, too thin, and just like everything fell through. And so that's why I was really fascinated. Obviously you bringing Maxie onto the table with us is like, that's a real differentiator, because TJ was talking and he's like, yeah, because if you are selling everything everybody else is selling, naturally, yeah, there's some value in like you, the installer, of being around, but at the end of the day, it's probably going to shift the price. And I had an experience where I fell into that. I was selling Q-Cell panels, and I didn't know I was being shopped. I should have known better. It was from a former customer. And all of a sudden he's like, well, somebody beat you. And I'm like, and I'm the owner of the company, so I'm not like trying to make a rip. I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah.
So we worked it out, but I'm just like, geez Louise, man. And it kind of hit me right there. I was like, man, if I had the freaking Maxion panels if I was selling them right now, I would never ran into this issue, because it's a strong company with a strong product, and both are built to last. And I think that's just kind of new and refreshing, because you talked about it. Like I think solar and in life, it's like things change, things evolve, and it becomes very personless. And now I think with solar changing and just the industry in general, that like whether you're doing it Zoom or in person, but like having somebody that's an actual expert, right? Like 3 years ago, I could have hung a sign on somebody that walked through a neighborhood, said, hey, get solar with no down payment, ask me how. Somebody maybe would have bit on that. But now it's like you actually have to have a skill. And I even find that with myself when I'm in a home, is like, how do I get better at being an expert? Because we all kind of talk about it, but very few are actually an expert. And I think that's where you thrive. So to kind of move on, from kind of your basics of selling and improving. I mean, if you want to talk a little bit about your time at SunPower, like what, I guess in your solar journey, like obviously there was SunPower, and now we're kind of post SunPower. Were there some principles and things you learned maybe about yourself or about life and business while being at SunPower? Because obviously it was probably a pretty good experience overall, but are there any kind of key moments or things that kind of stuck with you being involved with SunPower and then growing to be the first actual master dealer?
I think my time at SunPower was phenomenal. As I said, I worked with installing dealers here for a good 8 years, and then got my own dealership. For me, it was just the evolution of growing as a sales consultant and becoming a marketing company, and kind of being what I was telling you earlier, an owner who's wearing multiple hats. But
Sure.
luckily, I found I had skill sets for most of them. So for me, it was actually a really good fit. SunPower was a great company. The frustration I saw with SunPower is phenomenal brand, 40 plus years, a titan in the industry. To see them go out was personally, on a personal level, very hurtful because I lost my dealership and I was so proud of building that. But in the end, I think what I've learned is just the resiliency I think all of us in the industry have to have. They call our industry the solar coaster.
Yeah.
It's up and down. I've been through a lot of those ups and downs. And I think what I've realized is just like any industry or any career out there, the more you find your personal why, the more resilient you become as a rep. You just kind of roll with the changes on lending, the changes on product, the changes on dealerships. Those are things that are going to change always. But what I've always landed on, and again, my girlfriend's very critical to this. I bring her up many times because she's a very important part of my life. But she's told me, as long as you're selling the best product that's made for where you're selling, in this case, Arizona, Nevada, like hot environments, that's where I'm going to hang my hat.
Sure.
Everything else can be variable. Companies can come and go. Maxion was originally part of SunPower, was spun off in 2020 as a separate manufacturing division. That panel, that DNA is unique. The IBC tech is unique. It's copper backed. It's got flexibility. There's a lot of great things about that tech, but it's phenomenal in terms of power loss. There's no other panel. It's not just the 40-year warranty they give you. At year 40, they're guaranteeing 88%, which matches what most manufacturers will only give you at year 25.
Yeah.
So the history of that product is phenomenal. But so I land on the resiliency that I've learned, I've become more adaptive to how markets are, learning Phoenix and how Phoenix changed even last year. Phoenix got much more aggressive on price. It was a huge shift from what I had seen even a year earlier as a dealer. So I think just learning how to be flexible, adaptable, and then finding that resiliency inside to say, I can work with any market. I'll always figure it out, and as long as I'm on the right pitch, which to me is always about product, if I'm giving the right pitch to the right homeowner, I'll have resonance in any industry, and I'm not going to compete on price. I routinely tell homeowners to their face, Tyler, I won't be your cheapest bid.
Right.
And it's not a sales gimmick. I'm offering you something different. So I want you to take your table, your 4 other bids, or the ones you're going to shop me with, they're on that pile, mine's over here.
Right.
And if mine's over here, I'm going to have you consider it differently.
Sure.
And you'll consider paying more for what I'm going to offer. And it's not out of arrogance, it's just I know this product very well. I know it's better than anything else out there. And I earn your business that way. And to me, the reps out there right now, the ECs that are struggling in our market are the ones that are not product focused and they're price focused. And if you're bidding a Q-Cell, if you're bidding an REC Alpha, you're bidding a SEG, or go right down the list, JA Solar, you're bidding what everyone else is bidding. And you can't be offended by a homeowner who comes back to you and says, Tyler, I've got 3 other quotes.
Yeah.
You got beat. As far as I'm concerned, and again, think about the homeowner. They don't have as much information as maybe you do.
Sure.
They think all the installing partners are fairly equal. They're in the same boat.
Right.
And so really it comes down to, if you're spec for spec on product, I'm shopping price. It's like you go to buy a car, you're like, I've got this Nissan dealer who has this price, this Nissan dealer.
Sure.
Like product is the same. So like you can't blame the homeowner.
Yeah.
Where I blame the EC is, and I think this is where we're talking about the evolution of the EC right now, is are you going to get better at product? Are you going to understand more to win the bid? Or are you going to just come in with the same tired pitch and offer the same product everyone else is offering and then be frustrated with the results when you're like sitting and selling 1 contract a month? To me, that's the EC has to either get better or likely get out of the industry. And we're seeing a lot of that attrition on the dealer side, attrition on sales.
Sure.
Phoenix is I think it's one of the toughest solar markets in the US right now.
Yeah.
And either you're going to be really good as an EC and say, I want to get really good at this and train with somebody like me who wants to get you to the next level on product, or you're going to leave because you won't feed your family, getting back to my earlier story. And when you're not feeding your family, you're selling Buicks, I guess. You'll find something else to do.
Sure. No, and I've because I follow a good amount of people in solar on like Instagram, and it's, now so-and-so's selling cars, and now so-and-so's doing finance.
No shame in that, by the way.
No,
I'm not picking on people selling cars.
Obviously, but like it's kind of interesting what you said, because in a smaller microcosm, I had a similar experience when I was selling before I became an owner of a company. Like, dude, I could not sell an engineer for the life of me. And so honestly, I would just give the same pitch I gave everybody else, knew I was not going to close it, and just said, it's just kind of my percentage. I just know that's part of my non-closed percentage. And then it was like, once I, started to own a company and like really understand how the product worked, now I speak to engineers, I can sell an engineer. But I realized the shift between being not able to sell an engineer, and selling an engineer really wasn't that crazy of a shift.
No.
It was like, get out of your own way and comfortability of selling and how you want to buy, and just look at it from this perspective. You provide them the data that they're looking for and make it make sense. Engineers are some of your very best customers because they actually understand the product better than you. And that's where I was kind of like, they were probably seeing through it, because it's like, this is like any other solar sales pitch I've ever had. Like, what's different about this? And if they have unanswered questions in their mind, they cannot make a decision.
Yeah.
And so that's where I, seeing your deck, and anybody that were to train with you, it is the best deck on solar, on product, on the whole process that I've ever seen. Most people, and I fall into it a little bit too, like, you get your little solo solar proposal. It's got 8 slides.
You're selling off the proposal.
And you're like, here it is, and
here's your layout.
Let's go, And it's not really doing the customer any services other than like checking a few random boxes.
I think to your point, I mean, think about the dollars that we're asking homeowners to pay. I mean, in today's market in Arizona, APS, SRP, wholesale buyback, essentially, you have battery attachment on most bids if you're doing it right. You're switching them time use to demand. You're just call it, you're north of 50 on most bids with battery. That's cash.
Yeah.
Now, that's a big ask in today's world. So to get a client to say, I'm going to make this large investment, you have to be really good at this.
Sure.
Like the days of, like you said, going in with a 0.99 lending and, I'm in here and look at me and look at my dollar cost. It's so much lower than the utility. Why wouldn't you? They're long gone.
Yeah.
Now it's a question of, do you want to make this large investment? Do you see like structurally why you have to change and adapt your rate plan? Demand charge, peak hours, like those are only going to get more expensive. But you can't just make the economic argument of, I'm going to save you money, look at my monthly.
Yeah.
Now you have to say, okay, I'm going to give you maybe even SRP, a higher monthly than what you have now, which is, don't get me wrong, probably the toughest utility to sell in the entire U.S. is SRP.
Yeah, I have SRP.
6 hours a peak, you need 2 batteries essentially. But ultimately my point is, to get to where I think you need it to be as an energy consultant, I'm talking to ECs out there right now, to sell in today's climate, you look at my decks, average, depending on the product, north of 60, 70, 80 slides, which seems incredibly in the weeds and overkill. But when it's done right, you're educating them on every aspect of the panel, the build, the frame, the strength, the testing. So they understand, this is why I'm going to spend and feel good about it, $60,000 on this. And I'm going to know I'm buying the right product. I mean, that's like selling a very decent, maybe not a high-end car, but it's asking for a lot of money. So solar is a significant investment for most homeowners. And as the economy tightens more this year, which is probably likely based on tariffs and everything else, it's going to get harder to make that ask. So I think you're going to see the best ECs will come to the top. The rest will leave. And we'll see more shrinking in our market. I think that's going to be a natural function. That was what happened last year. We saw large installers tighten, SunPower, large installers go out. I think you'll see the attrition on the dealer side as well. What I think you guys are doing smart, and this is one thing I was complimenting them the first time I met with them, is they want to grow here, but they want to do it smart. And they don't want to, they're not a traditional EPC for the energy consultant now. They're just not, we're just an installer, you go sell and we'll just take your deals. You guys care about the client, you care about the process, and you're trying to grow in a very smart way, which is the only way you can grow in an economy like this. So to me, I think you guys had the right business plan. As I said, the acumen, the integrity was there. So I just feel like you guys are right on the execution side. Now we just have to pair a sales process that's different than just the door knocker / I'm going to go to your door and save you money pitch. Now it's got to be. Now we got to elevate the presentation and pitch. And I think I will bring that to you, not out of ego because I just have a history of doing that. But I think our combination, you guys being great at the installing side, the sales deck, and the improvement on the sales process, we'll be able to not just survive but thrive in an economy like this. And we won't be the biggest dealer in Arizona, but the idea is we'll have a sustainable dealership that's going to be here for years to service clients. Because as I tell clients, this isn't a one-year transaction. Like, you want us to be around to service your equipment when it breaks.
Well, no, and I think a few things you said make a ton of sense, because literally that we are at a crossroads, especially solar in Arizona. It's like, you're either going to get better at selling it or you're going to get out of the industry. And that's sort of my heat or whatever. Anybody that's watching is like, come learn from Greg, come work with Greg. By far, I mean, we've met hundreds, if not thousands of people through our doors over 8 years. And it's like, he is, I would put it number one as far as like product knowledge, passionate, understands his shit to where it's like, dude, it's hard to say no to that because you can't shop his product, you can't shop his deck. That presentation is unlike any other that anybody's ever going to see. And really, I think, if you're considering, getting out of this space or getting better, like come sit down and talk to Greg. We're going to do an open house with Maxion. Greg will be there as well, where maybe he can present some of that just to kind of show you that, like, hey, it's still possible to sell. And that's kind of the second half of this is like, there is so much negativity with solar, especially in Arizona right now. But like we are having one of the better starts of a year that we've had in a long time. And even like when we were thriving 3-4 years ago. And some of it, we're in this weird place because like, yeah, we're not the Walmart of solar. We're not the AI virtual assistant robot company of solar. We're not the company that installs without permits. So sometimes we feel like we're behind because there's other people cutting corners. But what we're learning is we might end up winning by default almost because it's like we didn't over leverage ourselves. Like we could have took home more money, but like we paid everything cash because learning from 08, 09, we were just old enough to know that like, man, that shit's real. And then you get into solar where all anybody knew when we started was 50 to 100% growth every single year, and everybody's just booming like it's never going to stop. But eventually that what goes up must come down to some extent. And so now what you've seen is just a ton of negativity because larger companies like Titan, SunPower, even Sonova, like they're bringing people down with them, and that's the unfortunate part. Is like just because they chose to take any single deal from every single salesperson and install on every roof, they're leaving a lot of people hanging out to dry. And so we're trying to position ourselves to we're the company that people call when their company went out of business, which obviously would resonate with people that went solar. But what does that say about people considering solar? Like, hey, you want a product that's built to last, which is Maxion. You want to be with a company that's built to last, which is Bright Home Energy. And you want to work with somebody that actually knows what the hell they're talking about, so you don't end up being in one of those nightmare test cases as well. So
yeah, it's always, I tell people, like, so it's always dangerous in the home if I lean on the negativity of our industry in the last year, it doesn't sound great, like lending and vendors and huge installers going out of business. So you always have to be careful. But I do think it's important to tell clients, I tell them some of my history, and I do talk a little bit about SunPower in some cases, not only because it supports the Maxion story, it's where they originated, but it's just part of my industry experience to say, look, you don't want to go with your cheapest bid.
Right.
The cheapest bid is the guy who is undercharging. And if you're not charging sustainable margins for your installers, for your carry costs as an installer, you're not going to be sustainable. And a lot of those vendors have gone away. Right. And as I tell clients, is it not a transactional? I sell you this product, you never have to hear from me again.
Right.
Because I've got 17 years and probably north of 5,000 clients here in Phoenix.
Jeez.
I get texts from clients that I signed up in 2010, 2011 that ask me, what can I do? My system needs this or that. So it's a long-term relationship.
Sure.
You're basically getting married to your client.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that approach of, you want a vendor like Bright Home who's got the right expertise, they're not overspending, they're not over leveraging, they're working with the market the way it is, and they're growing smartly, then you're going to get a vendor that's going to be there. And homeowners, and I tell this to homeowners, you want to pay, I always tell them, like, I think the smartest thing is not take your highest bid necessarily, unless it's the best product, not take your lowest. If you shop in the middle and you get the expertise and a product like Maxion and a great installer, that's a great place to land.
Right.
Like, you're not overpaying, but you're also not underpaying. There's significant risk with underpaying for solar, and I think we've seen that the last year demonstrated in a large way. So I'm a fan of telling clients, I go in saying, I won't be your cheapest bid. I'll hopefully earn your business based on product and knowledge. But as I said, you don't want to go with that cheap bid.
Yeah.
And there's too many guys in the industry we could name today, we won't, that are basically like, my bid will be the lowest and I'm bidding the same, you know what, that everyone else is bidding.
Sure.
So they're winning on that strategy because they're undercharging. And ultimately that is not a sustainable company that's going to be in business in a couple of years or even a year with how narrow margins are right now.
No, for sure. And it's something that it's can feel like tough to compete against, but like I said, having the right product and having the right product knowledge and being partnered with the right company, it's very hard to it's apples and oranges, you know what I mean? And I feel like that's where you and Maxion and them have been kind of a breath of fresh air, even just to change our perspective a little bit, because that's like, we feel like we're running in this race that we don't even belong, because we're like, people are installing without permits and people are giving like 165s red lines, and then they're giving $5,000 out front on an M1, and we're just like, how the hell is this even like a thing?
It's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable, and it's shown that. And so we're just like, what's wrong with us, kind of a thing, But we're like, we know we're in this box that we're operating in, but we're looking around and we're like, we don't belong. And so it was like almost fortuitous and like very breath of fresh air to meet you and get partnered up with Maxion, and we're like, okay, this feels right. This feels like what we need to separate ourselves moving long term, because we've always done that. Like, we were one of the first sales orgs that became an installer even before Fusion. And when we did that, we said, okay, we're only going to take internal people that we can train up, and we know we're not going to be the Walmart. We know we're not going to be the biggest company, but we can provide a quality experience to our people. They're going to provide that to our customers, and we're going to be built to last. But I'm really excited moving forward that, like, hey, if you're still in solar and you're thinking the same thing, like, I'm kind of spinning my wheels and I don't really feel like I'm getting the progress that I need, like, come learn from Greg, come partner with us, because we're going to give you a product that nobody can shop you. Like, think about that. In Phoenix, we're the only ones offering a 40-year warranty with Maxion, and you're going to learn from a guy that's done over 5,000 customers. Like, where are you going to learn that anywhere else in the valley? And the answer is zero. And so that's why we're just passionate and excited about that moving forward. And I guess kind of speaking of moving past your SunPower days and kind of wrapping this to a little bit of a close here in the next little bit, like, what is kind of next for you? I know you've kind of shared with us, and we're excited to help partner with you and to have success here. And I know you're working in Nevada as well, but if you don't mind just sharing, what's kind of next for you, and what are you offering people that are out there that are still in solar and maybe looking for a place to grow?
I think, my advice to the energy consultants that shop red lines, and that's how you pick your dealer or installing partner, I think if you look at your history, if you honestly look at the last few years, you've been casually dating a lot of installing partners, and what ends up happening is you don't have a home, which to me is like, I want to sell the same partner long term because it makes me feel better, and I trust the people I partner with. But if you're just selling and chasing red lines, you're jumping. It's because what happens is you go from one company who's the $160, then you go to the $170, $180. What you're really chasing is a really good functional operational installation partner. And what you really are not shopping is this the cheapest installer? No, it's like just telling, same the energy consultant, same as I tell a homeowner. Why are you shopping installers based on price? Like, you're making the same mistake that I preach to homeowners not to do. Like, it's the same mistake of, I came in here and asked them, we have a red line discussion, don't get me wrong, but the fact that you guys held a higher red line, A, I know it's sustainable, and B, it's a home I can call for a while, which is what I want. But more importantly, what I approach the client and what I'm selling the client is, it's not based on you're going to do this based on my price. You're going to do it based on the product, the uniqueness, the technology, all of that reason. So I don't have to fight on a red line. Like, the reps that are fighting for red lines are fighting against themselves. Find a home and become really good at this. Then you won't have to shop for who's going to give me the cheaper red line. You won't have the BS operational experiences, the ball drops, the lack of communication to your client, the install, the delayed PTOs, like all the stuff that you deal with the less than quality installers out there. That's what you deal with when you get a cheap red line. It's almost like you're signing up. You have to kind of knowingly say, well, this is what I'm signing up for. Just a BS project management, construction management, installation process. Well, and that's not a referral generator. Like, part of how I think about business is, it's not just do I find a home and do I find people that I want to represent and I feel and trust that they're going to do a great job. They're making 40 plus penetrations in my homeowner's roof deck. So I want to trust them. But also, I think of the other side of this as a business and entrepreneurs. Where is my business going to come from that I can create out of this, which is referral? I mean, buying leads only gets you so far. And in this industry, that's incredibly tough right now. It's very expensive as well. How are you turning your book of business into more business? You have to have a great partner like Bright Home. Either they're going to do a great job on that, and it's operational side that affects more that than anything I can say at the sit. I can give you the best presentation in the world and give you all the right answers, and you feel good about me. And 2 months later, if it's a botched handoff in PC and the ops side just drops the ball, construction delayed PTO, that ball is gone. There is no referral. So it kills me to see that. I won't point out names of installers that I've had issues with, but there's been a number of them that way. And yes, I got better red lines than what I'm getting here, and that there's no doubt about that. But in the end, I looked at the cost of business. I look at what do I want from my installer? What does my homeowner want from the installer? And how do I have confidence in representing this company? If I can check those boxes, it's no longer I'm chasing a red line. I'm chasing a partnership. That's what I think most DCs want if they were being honest and looking themselves in the mirror.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of there's a Jim Rohn quote that says, like, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better.
Yeah.
And I almost think that's where solar has gotten to, because everybody wants to compare it to the past instead of looking at the opportunity that's right there. Because yes, was solar in some regards easier to sell in the past? It certainly was. But now, as you know, and we'll see what the Sonova wave brings, I mean, it's going to take some companies down.
Yeah.
And for us, like, that just opens up more opportunities because, like it or not, I mean, Phoenix has what, 4, 5, 6 million people, ton of sun, and yes, the utilities are doing funky things, but like solar is always going to be around, and who's going to fill that void? And that's what we're working on, is being the go-to place in Arizona that not only can customers rely on, that like, hey, we're going to be around. Like, we're also unorthodox. Like, we're partnered with the Valley's largest home inspection company, AJF Homes. We're a preferred vendor for Great American Title. Like, we're really trying to like show that like we care and that we're working with other businesses to be able to provide that experience to their clientele, because we're very confident that we're going to be around, versus, hey, let's just throw out as many low red lines as we possibly can to sales mercenaries, and we'll try to grow that way, but we all know that that's not sustainable for that. So yeah, as far as the last thing I want you to hit on, I kind of asked TJ about this, but I feel like you're in the home all the time, and if you're talking to somebody, right, because most of the ECs that are watching this, I'm sure they fall into one of two buckets. One is they used to sell SunPower or Maxeon panels. Maybe they haven't found a place to be able to do that recently. Okay, cool. But majority are going to be, I'm used to Q-Cell, JA, REC, yada, yada, yada. What makes Maxeon so great? And so if you were to kind of sum it up in layman's terms, what are a few points in product that you kind of go to that says, hey, I know that this is a cheaper panel, but here's why it's easier to sell Maxeon when it's all said and done?
Yeah, I think the thing I always land on is temperature cycling in Phoenix. As the cell gets hot, it has to expand. When it gets cold, it contracts. So the fundamental question I think homeowners ask themselves is, what is the architecture of this cell? How can it handle that expansion, contraction, the temperature cycling here, which is extreme in Phoenix. And then some states you have the extreme where it's really cold and there's flexion. So it's getting really cold and the cell is shrinking. So the question in Phoenix is, how does the cell architecture handle that? The IBC tech, which is built into Maxeon, has a copper backside cell, which is an interdigitated backside contact. What's unique about it is the copper can withstand the flexion without cracking. Other cells will crack. The way I tell the homeowner, and it's very simple, most cells are made on a metal paste. We make IBC tech on copper. Just ask the homeowner, what do you think is going to withstand temperature in Phoenix better, paste or copper? It can become a very easy argument for the client to say, well, because most clients don't think about the roof cycling, the temperatures. They know they live in Phoenix, but you kind of have to put them in the mindset of, you're shopping for something that goes outside. Like when you shop for fabric for your upholstery, when you shop for tires, you don't think, let me go cheap. If you do that in Arizona, you end up getting burned, product destroyed, and you're like, that was a bad investment. You don't get to spend $50,000 and make a bad investment, in my opinion. So if you're going to put that much due diligence into your fabric and your tires, you sure as hell should put that into your solar. So to me, it's the value prop is, how is the panel built? The IBC tech is unique. The warranty is great. I call it the 40-year warranty that you don't have to use. That's what TJ says as well.
Best warranty.
That's nice, but in the end of the day, it's the architecture always. It's how is the cell built? And that's kind of where I cut to the chase when my homeowner tells me, because you've all been in this home, energy consultants now. You've been in the home where the client's like, you're my fifth. I don't need to hear your spiel. What's your price? And I love that. It's like, that gets me excited and gets my juices flowing, because I'm like, well, let me ask you a few questions. And I don't do it in a demeaning way, but I'm like, what do you understand about cell architecture? How is the cell built for temperature cycle? What is the temperature coefficient? I just start doing those questions and eventually okay, I guess I need to learn. And once the homeowner is open to that, then I can go in. And it's not a spiel. It's like, I'm here to educate you. It's not a spiel. A spiel is like what salesmen do. I'm not a salesman. I look at myself as an energy consultant, not a salesperson in any sense. To be honest, I hate salespeople. If you're in there selling me, you're not educating me. I don't want to listen to you. You're not authentic. You don't have my best interest in mind. You're trying to close me. It repulses me on every level. I have no interest in salespeople, which is why, getting to our point, if you do want to come over and talk to me, I don't want to hear your sales pitch. I want to meet you as a person and say, is this somebody I can actually work with? Is this somebody I would trust in my own home?
Yeah.
Like that to me is the measuring stick I'm going to look for. But to answer your question, it's always going to come down to the architecture, temperature, and it's really defining that to the client. Once you make that decision for that client, it's very visceral.
Sure.
It's not hard for the client to put the mindset of, I want the best built product because I live in frickin' Phoenix.
Yeah.
And my roof gets extremely hot. I'd be stupid to go the other way. It's just the average client doesn't know that because they're being met by reps who are like, panels are panels.
Yeah.
So you can't, I never blame the client. I never go in with a demeaning attitude like, you should know better.
Sure.
My attitude is, hey, you know better on other products. I'm going to educate why this is even more important on solar.
Yeah. No, and I think it just kind of goes back to that point to bring it home. It's the quality over quantity.
Yes.
You know, like if you're a EC and you've been in a quantity amount of companies and you're looking for some more quality, you know, come join Bright Home, come learn from Greg. If you've also been selling every normal 300 to 400 watt panel out there, that's no different than anybody else that knocks on their door or calls them on the phone or meets them somewhere else. You want a quality product, you know, partner with us because you're going to have Maxeon, which is exactly that. And so, yeah, we encourage you to come check it out. We're going to do an open house later this month in March to kind of just show off Maxeon, show what's available. Greg's going to be there, have certain portions of a slide deck. He's not going to give it all out there for you. You got to be a member of his team to get that.
Give you a flavor.
Yeah, give you a little taste of it. But Greg, appreciate having you on.
My pleasure.
I mean, you're just more than a wealth full of knowledge, and it's definitely refreshing in an industry that's all quantity that, you know, you're somebody of quality. So thank you all for tuning in. If you enjoyed this, please like, please subscribe, please follow this guy. Come meet Greg, come meet us, come meet Maxeon. We'd love to work with you.